Hey folks, this is Ben Yessel. How's it going? Quick video here. Um, so I just found out today, and if you guys have been watching my stuff for a while, you know that I'm aware of a whole bunch of different medical doctors, or nutritionists on YouTube especially. I just found out today that Dr. Eric Berg, who's a chiropractor and also a nutritionist, not like a medical doctor, but he's a chiropractor at least. He, along with being a Scientologist, think about how he will, is um, there's basically some issues with his son, and it's kind of putting him in a bad light. And of course, I don't know if Dr. Berg will ever comment on any of this stuff. I seriously doubt that he will. But I've noticed that a lot of folks that are really, see, this is one of the problems with getting too wrapped up in a certain doctor. Unless you fully agree with what the doctor says and their character is absolutely sterling, you know. Yeah, the problem being that it's hard to fully put your trust in a nutritionist or doctor when you see some major flaw in their character or sizable flaw. The flaw being that basically um, and this of course has something to do with Scientology, which you guys could probably guess. If someone tries to leave the Church of Scientology, it's a nightmare, basically. And it is a real issue with families because you could have family rifts and things that happen. But that's a whole, I've mentioned things about Scientology before. Actually, my channel, I actually have. It, not all that often, but they're definitely there. And I have rarely, if ever, talked about religion, at least other religions outside of my own. But if I ever talk about my religion, it's often more in a general sense rather than the specifics. But I still have a few videos that go into some stuff. But the thing is that so some of this is Dr. Berg, or some of this is Scientology. If Dr. Berg wanted to be to make amends with the son, he wanted that bad enough, he himself would have to leave the Church of Scientology. I think it's very draconian that way. So I don't know. I mean, it's just this has been on YouTube for a few months now, a few months, and his son has come out and stuff. But yeah, Dr. Berg is never going to talk about this, I don't think, because he only puts out stuff about nutrition and things like that. Health. He doesn't put out anything about his own family in that respect, at least in that respect. And the thing about Dr. Berg is that there are a lot of good things about his character, in my opinion. But Scientology is not a credit to uh, someone, pretty much. Or at least, let me rephrase that. Scientology preys on people rather than it takes from people rather than gives them things, regardless of what Tom Cruise thought originally about whatever. Um, so the issue is actually more with Scientology, actually, than it is with Eric Berg. In my gut of guts, in my heart of hearts, I'm finding more fault with Scientology far more than I am with Dr. Eric Berg. And what does this affect? So, so do I think Dr. Berg is a fine person? Well, I think that this is an issue. I think it's probably very difficult, to say the least, for him. I don't think we're getting the full message. We have one side of the story. We have the son's side of the story. And I think there's another side. That's Eric Bergen. If he ever addresses it, if he ever talks about it, which I doubt he will. If he ever does, we'll hear the other side. And yeah, I mean, like the issue is Scientology, folks. The issue is Scientology. It's if Dr. Berg was a member of a different church that didn't do this stuff to families, it'd be a different story. He would be close to his son, probably. You know, it's crazy. This is a little bit heavy stuff. So, do I have to think anything differently about what Dr. Berg has mentioned health-wise? Well, I've put out a whole bunch of health videos, hundreds really, or at least kind of drifts into the food grocery stuff. But the thing is that um, you can have Goji Man and you have vegans and stuff that go after his cholesterol, the amount of cholesterol he consumes, or the saturated fat thing, and they're welcome to do that. We all know trans fat is unhealthy. Trans fat's in a lot of baked items and margarine and stuff. So that's stuff we shouldn't eat at all. But saturated fat is a different beast. Mono and polyunsaturated fats are great for you. But, and omega-3 fatty acids are what you want more than omega-6s. But omega-6s aren't the end of the world. They're fine. It's just the omega-3s are actually great. But saturated fat is not unhealthy. I consider it kind of neutral ground. I'm of the opinion that it's a neutral area, or it's not as bad as a lot of people think it is. Because what is the main fear? Well, the main fear back from the 80s and 90s was saturated fat clogs your arteries, or it's cholesterol, or whatever. But what clogs your arteries apparently is a bit more connected with sugar, actually, rather than fat. In my estimation, my understanding. And there are things that can clean out your arteries that feature plant foods. That's what that's there for. Things like cilantro and stuff. So, and all that good stuff. So Dr. Berg eats a lot of cheese, high quality cheeses and eggs, and high quality eggs and stuff like that, along with the salads. That seems still very great to me. That seems very fair. That seems very reasonable. It's not unreasonable to have. Well, here's the thing that's a little bit odd about Dr. Berg. He eats up to 5 eggs, 4 to 5 eggs every day. Every day, 4 to 5 eggs. So I've increased my egg intake recently. I'm probably averaging. I used to average less than 1 egg a day. I'm now averaging probably about. On average, I'd say 2 to 3 eggs a day. Because some days I do 4 eggs. Other days I don't do eggs. It's like no eggs. It's almost alternating. And most days I'll eat like 3 eggs in the morning. So I'm definitely eating more eggs recently. But that's only for the last month or so. That might change in the future. But I'm eating less beef. And less chicken also. So less beef, less chicken, more eggs. So, in terms of my total animal protein intake, it's really just about the same. It hasn't really changed. But I am getting probably more benefits from the eggs rather than, chicken and beef is fine still. But a lot of people kind of pick on beef still. But I just find that eggs are, there are fewer negatives perhaps to them. Anyway, so but I still don't eat I have half the amount of eggs that Dr. Berg eats. Half. I don't eat those. I don't consume those stinky expensive cheeses. That's a totally Dr. Berg thing, and he has probably fewer carbs still than I do, even though I have not many carbs at all. Most of my carbs are coming from the berries I eat, occasional handful of grapes, and I might throw in an apple or orange here and there on occasion, or something like that, and maybe some beans and whatever carbs are in the pistachios and cashews and stuff I eat, almonds or whatever. I mean, it's lower carb, but it's not quite strict keto, but it's pretty low. And but he has fewer carbs than I do, I think. So I think his nutrition advice is still very sound. It's like if you take away the eggs and all the animal foods, what you're getting is you're just getting a vegetable heavy, or it's a very low carb, plant food diet. That's basically vegetables and, yeah, mostly just vegetables. And I don't know. So obviously he has for calories, but more animal foods. But no, I don't think anything is particularly wrong with that. Because again, the beef that Goji Man had, I watched Goji Man's thing about Dr. Berg recently again. The major issues, are how you see cholesterol and saturated fat. Um, how you is it incredibly unhealthy, or is it just fine, or is it something in between that? Or so yeah. So I'm asking myself, am I going to watch his stuff less often? Oh, I don't know. I mean, do I respect him less than I used to? Maybe a little bit. I assumed he was Lutheran or something because he's from Minnesota and Swedish or whatever, but no, he's Scientologist. If I heard about that, I don't think I've heard about that before. I mean, that would be interesting if I heard about it and I forgot about it, which you know, but yeah. Who am I watching more often now for nutritional stuff? Well, definitely Dr. Berg. I watch his stuff a fair bit. And Dr. Joel Furman is just, he doesn't have a lot of videos on YouTube. But I definitely still pay attention to what he's talked about. So I'll eat my mushrooms, I'll have my onions, I'll have my legumes or greens, onions, beans and berries, nuts and beans and berries and seeds. Keep those things in mind. I have a thing of pumpkin seeds, in my backpack. I snack on those things, there. Sometimes I go back to sunflower seeds or whatever, but I'm also watching Dr. Sten Ekberg, and I'm watching Dr. Barry here and there, and Dr. Hyman a little bit, and um, Axe. Dr. Axe, yeah, he's a very smiley, cheerful guy. My mom loves Dr. Axe. And also Dr. Mandel. Dr. Mandel actually has these little shorts, and Dr. Mandel actually has. I don't know if he's my favorite doctor right now, just overall, but I think Dr. Mandel may be somebody that you guys want to check out. It's Mandell, Dr. Mandel, because he definitely seems to agree with a lot of what I think is good information for nutrition. Um, Maybe I'll be paying more attention to Dr. Mandel. Maybe make more of a switch shift from Dr. Berg to Dr. Mandel. But again, with Dr. Berg, some folks have commented on how something feels a little bit off about Dr. Berg. Well, maybe so. So I've watched this stuff for quite a while. Like whenever I'm watching Dr. Berg video, he's always very polite. He's very polite. He's very clear speech, right? Clear speech, and he has this way of explaining things on a board, so it's kind of easier to see, and with a whiteboard and stuff. And he um, looks healthy to me, and he is direct, but he's not aggressive. Or he cuts the chase. He doesn't beat around the bush about a lot of things so much. And I mean, to me, he doesn't seem like a he certainly has an even tempered way about him, but yeah, this is not such a good thing to hear about. And um, is there kind of a cult following that he has? I hate that word cult because it can mean many different things to different people. Anyway, but I mean, it's kind of um, again, I mentioned this very video. There are people that just latch on to a doctor as almost like they're like a spiritual leader or something. And these people are imperfect human beings. They're not perfect. There are some that are better people, I think. Maybe it's good to listen to them more often if they are both good people and they have sound nutritional advice. Um, yeah, that feeling that people had that something seemed a bit off about Dr. Berg may have something to do with how eloquent he is in front of the camera. Um, and maybe it just seemed a little bit less um, what's the word? Transparent. This is who he really is, kind of thing. Um, it seemed very like professional and polished kind of presentations and that sort of thing. And maybe that's why it seemed a little bit off to some people. Um, maybe, maybe. Um, but at some point, if this gets big enough, you'll have to address it. And, there'll be a very different tone that he'll have. And I'll be curious as to what he'll have to say, sure, about this whole thing. Do I think that Dr. Berg needs to leave Scientology? Yeah, I think he does. I think anybody who's a Scientologist needs to leave the religion, to be honest. If there's anything I'm opposed to other than satanic practices, it's probably this supposed church. But there are other churches that are just as bad, if not worse. Maybe we don't know about them, but there are certainly others, right? But I have nothing against. I mean, when we're talking about L. Ron Hubbard, for instance, and I mentioned this before, it isn't really L. Ron Hubbard that I have unpleasant feelings about. L. Ron Hubbard actually is kind of an enigma still. He's got a lot of great qualities, and he's got some sketchy qualities, perhaps, but I bear no ill will toward L. Ron Hubbard. He's an interesting guy, and I think actually I'd love to talk to him sometime. In the afterlife, I really would. Very bright individual, very much so. It's definitely goes without saying. It's definitely um, what's his name? Funny last name guy. Talking about the current leader of Scientology, that Miscavige, David Miscavige. That guy, I do not like at all. I think people need to leave this cult church. I don't like to use the word cult, but I'll use the word cult in this case, at least for Scientology. Wow. And it's not the people's fault. The people of Scientology, they had the best intentions getting in there. It's just the nature of the beast. But yeah, Dr. Berg needs to leave this thing. He needs to leave this church and do something different. Anyway, please leave the thoughts and comments below. I'll catch you guys later. Take care. Bye.